to A Well-Designed Business. My name is Luann Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. On the show today, I have Kat French, hashtag baby designer, who happens to be killing it. Kat originally reached out to me last February on the exact day that I was celebrating the second birthday of the podcast. She congratulated me on the second birthday of the podcast, and she said, you know, I started my business literally 1 month before you started the podcast. And she said, I found the podcast right away, and it has really helped me grow my business and really get my business off the ground. And so I said to Kat, you know, you probably should come on the show. If you can make a list of all the things that you've done, I'd love to know about it. So here we are today to talk about the things that Kat French has learned from A Well-Designed Business. They include all the way from Chad James's advice to have Monday morning meetings, which we also took at WindowWorks as well. And also she talked about how my husband taught her that it was important to know your cost to be open number, how you have to know every single month how much you have to make before you actually start earning profit. The really cool thing is that Kat has shared this figure with her employees, just as we do at WindowWorks as well. And when they hit that number in her firm, they all cheer. And so I think it's pretty awesome what Kat has done. It's actually more than that. It's remarkable what she has achieved in 2 years in her business, almost 3 now. And so I'm going to let her tell you the rest of the things that she's done, but I'll give you a little more information on her. Kat is the founder of Catherine French Design, which is a full-service interior design firm located in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Kat has her bachelor's in psychology from Wake Forest University, and she also has her Master of Fine Arts in Interior Architecture from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, while teaching environmental design studio at UNCG. She presented her work at several state and national conventions as an expert on interior design and historic preservation. Now, Kat leads a passionate and enthusiastic team of design professionals that you'll hear her describe on the show today. As a reminder, don't forget about Article.com. Article.com is your go-to source for sofas, chairs, office furniture, and outdoor furniture, especially if you're looking for sleek mid-century Scandinavian-inspired furniture. A tremendous to-the-trade program, which is run by interior design professionals just like you, features awesome delivery and return policy. Check them out today at welldesigned.article.com. That's welldesigned.article.com. Okay, I'm very happy to introduce you to Kat French. Hi, Kat. Thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Hey, Luann.
So, Kat, I have to say, you're in one of the designers in recent months that have said to me that you have been listening to the show from the very beginning. So that's pretty fun. Thank you for that.
You're very welcome.
And I am interested to learn that you actually opened your interior design firm 1 month before I started the podcast. So I think we've been kind of growing our little things right here alongside of each other these last 2.5 years.
That is so true, and I am so grateful. Oh, my goodness. Yes.
Yeah. And so what's interesting is you sent me an email, and you were so nice that you sent me an email and said the things that you had learned from A Well-Designed Business. And you had such a nice long list there. And you have not only the thing about it is you had a nice long list of the things that you have really taken seriously from the podcast and implemented, decided to act on, but that you are really having tremendous success in such a quick out the gate way. And so I was like, oh, we got to talk about this.
I love to talk the business side. So,
yes. So here's the thing. You know my show. I don't normally go say to somebody, so tell me about the very beginning, because the very beginning can sometimes be like, well, I was moving furniture when I was 5 years old. Okay.
Correct.
But I am interested because your very beginning is only 2.5 years ago at this point, and because your very present is so out of the park, I want to give context to your beginning. So talk to me about the beginning of the business. It was you alone, obviously, and the things that you were going through and the things that you were wondering about, the things that you felt like you knew what to do, the things that you were not sure what to do. Just get us into that beginning stage 2.5 years ago.
Okay, sure. So, oh my goodness. So my son was about a year old at the time. My husband was in law school, and I had graduated in December as opposed to the traditional May. And my thoughts had been I would teach. That's what I was really trying to go for. And instead, when I graduated, I was looking all around and I was saying, I need to make some money like ASAP. And I had a couple things happen all within the first few weeks of January. There was a woman who approached me at a local historic preservation event. I was docenting and asked if I would be willing to help her daughter. And that woman has no idea that she was actually technically my very first client. But I charged her like $50 an hour and showed up, and I spent that first $500 that I got out of that job, and that's what I used to establish the company, to pay the lawyer, to figure out like how to get a resale permit, all these different things. And then about a week into about second week of January, one of my best friends from college, her older brother was building a new construction home outside of Pittsburgh. So I'm in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, by the way. So this is not like down the street. And he goes, can you help me with this kitchen design? And he was like, it seems a little wonky. And I was looking at it and I was like, yeah, there ain't no way. And so I laid that out, and then I was asking like, are you open to potentially rejiggering like how this closet access is? Anyway, to make the story short, it turned into a full construction, like the full enchilada. So I've helped him pick out all the interiors, all the exteriors. We've been working on this for a while now. We've done all the furniture, pretty much anything at this point that is in his home, I've helped him select, which is really exciting. And then third week of January, a different friend of mine from grad school, she had just started a job at the University of North Carolina School of the Arts. They're the Thomas S. Keenan Center, which is like their nonprofit wing. And they were looking to create a creative community lab, which was going to be this kind of non-traditional office workshop type space in an old historic railroad depot. It had already kind of been subdivided a little bit with drywall, and some offices, the colors were atrocious, the lighting was bad. Can you help us like update this, refresh it, on the cheap? Luckily I was cheap, and the furniture I found was also cheap. So kicked that one off. And so I had a couple of these bigger projects all happening at the same time. And I remember I was working out of the bedroom of my house going, okay, so my goal is just to be able to pay myself this year. And my husband and I would talk about like, how long would this venture last before, we would decide if I needed to look for something else or, what. So I would say starting March, I was looking at round one of this installation for Winston-Salem for the Arts Institute.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going, I have no idea how I'm literally going to get all of this into this space and put together and installed in time for their grand opening. Like, no clue. So I called up one of my good friends who lived in the area, and he was a stylist. And I just said, can you help me? I will totally pay you. And he was like, of course. And around that time, I was driving back and forth to Winston-Salem, and I had found your podcast. So I was in the car over an hour each way, and I would just like put one on, play it, listen to it, take notes, and then I would like call a friend or something if there was time left over. And one of the early podcasts was talking about how you should hire somebody who's not a miniature version of yourself. Should hire somebody who has skill sets in other areas. And I was going, at first I was thinking, well, he's not a trained interior designer. Like, is this a worthwhile move? And it turned out to be one of the best things I did, because he could handle certain things and he excelled at certain things that I did not, right? And so we had complementary skill sets. And fast forward to that fall, suddenly I had a couple other projects. I was looking at it going, I need more help again. And so I ended up at the dog park with my dog, talking to who was at the time one of my neighbors, Jamie, who his brain is totally opposite mine. He has a ton of experience in like growing businesses in like understanding the numbers, and he's a whiz with the spreadsheet, and he understands SEO, and he knows how to do all those different things. And we were talking, and he was saying that he was thinking of trying to go back to work part-time, and I was like, you want to help me? He was like, maybe. And so I brought him in, and then within like a few weeks, I was like, oh yeah, totally, this is it. And so he's been with me now for over almost 2 years. We're going to be celebrating his work anniversary at the end of next month. And it's just been amazing to kind of watch him grow and all the different things that he's been taking on, in addition to, I have a great team now, and everybody's in different places. And, so I think what the takeaway is that at that beginning point, I was looking around going, how the heck am I going to do this? How am I going to pay myself? And here we are 2.5 years later, and I'm like, okay, what do we have to build this month to make sure we pay everybody?
Right.
What's our number? What are the projects coming in? Is this project like gonna help us make it ends meet, or is it, it's just a totally different conversation now. And my team is really diverse and wonderful and amazing, and helped grow significantly this past year. So
it's great. It's absolutely great. I have a lot of questions. So I mean,
I know
surprised, right?
No, go for it.
So here's the thing. So a couple of things strike me, going back to the beginning there. When you took that second project and both the second and third project, the bigger project in Winston-Salem and the project for your friend's brother in Pittsburgh, did you just throw a dart and decide how to charge them? Like, how did you come up with what you would charge them, and how did, I guess that's it. How did you do that?
So I had been interning with a local to me here in Chapel Hill, preservation designer is kind of what she calls herself. She does like a mix of architecture, interior, kind of renovation, just the space planning side. And she was paying me $35 an hour, and I knew that I was going to have to pay taxes on that. And so I was like, well, how about we go for 50? I don't know what I'm doing. We'll just start at 50, and there you go.
Okay.
That was
so
how I
what you're
decided.
saying is those first two projects, you just charged a straight hourly rate for everything you did.
Correct. And for the most part, I still charge a straight hourly rate. And the reason I do that is because so often I get into a project with a client, the scope has been defined, we've projected our time out and said we think it's going to cost about this to do your job. And we get into it, we build that relationship, and before I know it, like, almost every project has scope creep. They want more. They want, can you also help me with this space? Can you also help me with this space? And I don't want to say no.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say, yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to help you. That's not wrapped into what we initially talked about. Is that okay? And they're like, yeah, great. And so I'm like, okay. And this is why I charge by the hour. Is I want to feel like, if you want more of my attention, I want to feel free to give it, and not have to crunch numbers at the end of the day. So.
Okay. And so the thing with that is what are you expressing to us that by simply just saying, we're charging by the hour, and if we're going to stand here and the appointment today was because we were talking about the living room, and you want to stand there for 25 minutes and talk about the dining room on the way to the living room, that I'm on the clock, and that's it, period.
That's it. I'm happy to talk to you about your dining room. We can look at your basement and where your cat lives, whatever you want to do.
Right. And do you find, Kat, that you need to sometimes say, or do you take it on, I could see some personalities needing the parameters redefined and some possibly not,
totally.
Right? So you have sometimes somebody calls you and your appointment is set up to discuss the living room. And on the way to the living room, they start asking you questions about the dining room. Do you, after it starts to get into 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, will you stop them and say, hey, look, I know you only expected to spend an hour today. Are you adding the dining room to the project, or, should we get refocused and get back to the living room? Because I'm sure there's some personalities that think, hey, she's talking about the dining room and she isn't really starting her clock until we get to the room that we said we were going to talk about.
Yeah. So I try to address that kind of like that, the manage client expectations piece of it up front. So for an initial consultation, I explain I charge by the hour. My whole staff charges by the hour. So, when we're working on your project, when we're working with you and we're talking with you and we're working on your project, however that is defined, that is time that we are spending on your project. And so I'm like, I'm happy to talk to you about whatever you want. I really feel like if you're hiring me and I'm your expert and I'm here to walk you through this process, I feel like you should be able to ask me whatever you want to ask me. It's your time. But if you're asking me after, 15 minutes of conversation about your dining room, and then suddenly you're wanting me to specify all these different things and help you redesign it, I'm going to say, that sounds great. Let's talk, are you asking me to really take this on? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, great. Okay. So why don't we talk about that scope right now while we're still talking about it, and then we can address this other space. Is that okay? Do you have the time? And they're usually like, yeah, that sounds great. And we proceed from there.
Okay. Okay.
So.
And so 2.5 years ago, you were $50 an hour. What are you now?
You're gonna laugh at me. I'm at 150 right now.
Okay,
but
I'm not laughing. That's 2.5 years. Yeah,
I know. I think we're hitting another pay bump here in a few.
Yeah, so. You probably are ready to. I would agree with that. Okay,
yeah.
And then so I have other questions from back to the beginning, but to finish this,
Sure.
And you bill out each of you have 3 people on staff, 1, 2, 3, Courtney, Sarah, and Jamie, right?
I do.
Okay, so you bill each of them out by the hour as well.
I do.
And what do you bill them out at?
Currently they're all at 110, but today is Courtney's work anniversary, and she just moved to senior designer status. So she's going to be bumping up a little bit in pay, and then I'll be bumping up a little bit too.
Okay.
So,
okay, good.
Yeah.
And then obviously we're not paying them the same, right? They're getting less than that. Right.
Correct.
Okay, good. Okay, now let me go back to, I know what I wanted to go back to from the beginning. You had that moment when you were ready to do that install and you said, how am I even possibly going to do this and make their date? What did you do then, since you were on an hourly? Did you just take money out of your pocket to pay your friend on that project? Or did you just say to these people, hey, I could do this every day for 10 hours, but we're not going to open, or we can have 2 of us doing it every day for 20 hours and you'll open? Like, you've got to pay. What did you do?
So I made a spreadsheet with how much I thought it was going to take, like how much time I thought it was going to take for me to really install this. and showed them the spreadsheet and then also showed them their deadline and said, I think it's going to be X amount of time if me, myself. And then I said, I really need a helper. I'm going to bring him on. What I would like to do for sake of transparency is be able to charge you for his time. And it's going to be, less than my time. But here's where this is so we can meet your deadline. Are you okay with that? And they were like, wait, so you want to get this done on time for less money? And I was like, yep. And they're like, great. So I was like, at this point, I was just like, I just need to get this done, right?
And how did it become less money? I missed that part.
In their mind, because he was at a lower rate.
Oh, I see.
So instead of it being
yes, understood
for like 2 weeks, it was going to be like, 50. I think he was at 35. Again, this baby designer cat. This was, and I was like, I think we can get it done in a week,
Right.
And they were like, yeah. And I'm like, great. And then the wonderful and amazing thing about this initial project is that the space I was designing was really truly for them to be able to open like a creative entrepreneurship kind of lab thing. Specifically focused more in the fine arts of like what they had to offer at UNCSA, which is more performance based. But so they were kind of in that mentality, and really, I think, kind of proud of the fact that they had hired this person who they knew this was like one of my very first projects, and that I was already hiring. It was a testament
to everything that they were about.
Exactly, and they were really proud of it. So
I love it. I think it's awesome. And the huge thing in there, the lesson in there, is that you analyzed it and you presented it as a question. What I always say to people is, you're a grown-up adult. I can ask you the question. If you want to say no, you have the ability to say no. I just said that to you off air, right? Look, you don't have to do this. You don't, right? And the thing is, leave it to the other person to make up their mind. They could have said to you, no, we don't think you should hire somebody, or blah, 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 blah. We're not going to pay a helper. And you could have just said, okay, fine. We'll just, take, 3 weeks. I don't care, whatever. It's your opening.
Right. So, and I wanted them to make that decision, because I was saying, I have a problem. This is my solution, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm right, and
I'm open. They might have said, well, we'll give you 3 of our volunteers for the week. They could have done anything, right?
Exactly. And I mean, I would have been like, sounds great.
Right.
I just need to get this done. So
what I love, and I want to make sure that our friends are listening, are hearing, you didn't say, oh my goodness, in order to get this done, I'm going to have to hire somebody. I can't tell them that I didn't budget for it. I can't tell them I'm not going to be able to get it done on time. So I'm going to pay my friend $35 and I'm only going to make $15 an hour doing this. See, that's, I know there's people in every industry that would have done that instead of having the hard conversation. And the thing about the hard conversation is, if you present the facts, it doesn't have to be a hard conversation. It simply is. This is the reality.
Correct.
Right. And I love it. And the truth is, they might have said, hey, we've got, 3 part-time people that we're paying anyway. We'll have them. Can you direct them around? And there might be some times where you would say, actually, they don't have the skills for it. I actually need these skills. But other times you might be like, heck yeah, let's use your people.
Yeah. Oh, you have strong men. Sounds good.
That's it. Awesome. Right. Exactly. Yeah. So that's really, really very critical on your part to have done that at such a beginning part of your business, and to just analyze it for what it is, to present it for what it is, and to create the solution for them, and to be fine with however it went down. So awesome. Good for you. The other thing that I want to know in there is, that was in the spring of 2016, and then you said now you're in September 2016, and you've got another project, and you're getting busy, and your exact words were, I need more help again. And so what I think is so interesting, Kat, is that I find that many newer business owners will wait way, 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 way too long to hire somebody because of the fear of hiring somebody. So I understand that not everything in opening your business has been easy, and I'm sure you've had many things that were difficult, but it seems like you intuitively somehow push through that. Do you agree, or are we, I'm hearing one, like what happens there?
So I think I look at it as, I think it was also contextual in the larger sense of where I was in life. So by the fall, my son was 2, and my husband was finishing up starting his last year of law school, and so he was doing the networking hustle.
Mm.
And there was just not a lot of time. And I found that, and this is probably the blessings of school, is I found that if I wasn't creating time to be present with my family in the evenings and on the weekends, then I didn't really know why I was working so hard.
Mm.
And so I kind of instituted this rule in the office, which we still have this policy today, is we do not work after 5 and we do not work weekends. There are exceptions, like if we're out for an installation on site but it needs to be kind of pre-approved. And we tell clients when they call in, we don't work nights, we don't work weekends. If that's not going to work for you, then we're probably not the firm for you.
Mm.
And I'm really strict about it. Not from an I don't want to pay overtime standpoint. I'm happy to pay overtime. It has much more to do with the fact that this field is a creative field, and it requires a certain amount of energy, and it requires a certain amount of rejuvenation and an ability to kind of step back and allow the inspiration to be there. And if I am running a million miles an hour, which I am as a young mom, outside of the job, where is that point in which I rest and I rejuvenate?
Mm.
And everything's so client-centered. I'm jokingly refer to like how we're soothing client feels, right? Like it's I'm sorry, your sofa is like going to be delayed. I have absolutely control over this. Trust me, I'm probably more upset than you are, but I have to remain calm. I have to present this like it's going to be okay. This is the plan. This is how we're going to address this. This is what we're going to do, and that's my role. And so I look at it really truly as if the crazy level starts to get too much, like we are just so bananas busy that my team starts to feel stressed, I'm stressed, it doesn't look like the work is going to be calming down in the next few months, then we need to stop and pause and say, is it time to hire? And what kind of person are we trying to hire? Not just we're hiring somebody, but what is truly the right fit for us? Like, what do we need them to do? What is their role? And the answer is never another version of somebody here, at least not right now. The answer is, what is that niche that we need within the company so that person can really shine? And so that's why, listening, I think, to the podcast so often that first year and all those drives was just so helpful, because I was listening to all these other interior designers who've owned firms that are so successful talking about, like, very few of them are like, oh, I do it just by myself. And here they are, like, running massive multi-million-dollar firms. They have a team. Like, you have to have your team. And I think recognizing that and also being okay with delegating has been big for me in the last 2.5 years. So.
No, I think it's terrific. And you've said a couple of things in there that I really like. First of all, you said that as a company, you will not work nights and weekends because you feel that it's very not only important to be with your family, but important to give yourself time to rejuvenate. And it reminds me, and it reminds me of Dina Holland the other day from Honey and Fitz, right? Didn't she just say, she said, look, if I am away from my kids, then I'm getting paid for it. Like, that's what she said, like that is that.
Oh,
and
my gosh.
Right.
Yes.
And so I think that's cool. And I think what it is the answer in, I'm going to paraphrase what I heard in there. Okay. Yeah. The answer to how did you overcome the fear that so many of us face as younger entrepreneurs of hiring is your answer really in all of that was because I have decided that I'm not going to have a crazy life. I'm going to have a personal life. And what happens is when I coach the designers, a lot of times when they get into a moment of push and pull, I ask them to just sit and think, what will you do and what won't you do? Because when you get clear at what will you do and what won't you do, it then becomes almost like your presentation to the arts center. Look, you can be this way or that way. So in your mind, when I'm saying, how did you push through the fear of hiring that so many of us face? What your answer is, I have decided that I'm going to have my nights and weekends free. And so because that decision is innate and it's a non-negotiable to you, you don't sit there and say when you get busy, oh my God, should I? Because you've already made a decision. Okay, that's the third night this week. I've had to work till 6:30. So clearly I need to hire. And then you don't worry about the fear of that because your other thing that you have decided for you, what I will do and what I will not do, has started to be compromised. I think it's awesome.
Correct.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, when I decided I was going to hire, I was like, well, I don't know how other business owners view this, but for me, it's like if I'm hiring, my employees are going to get paid before I get paid, right? Like that's
how it is, honestly.
Right? That's like the name of the game. Right. So I have to be okay with the fact that like my employees are going to get paid before I get paid. And so, so what was interesting is in my little business trajectory here is that, fast forward to the winter of 2017 and based on, I was just starting into my second year of being open. I had no idea what was going on. I didn't realize that like how often in the residential side, people want their homes wrapped up before the holidays and then they kind of take a month to breathe before they come back.
Exactly.
Right? And so we ran into a cash flow problem. And that month I did not pay myself. I took money out of savings, which we didn't really have, and put it into the company to make payroll for that month, knowing that I was going to be paying myself back that loan, and that was not a light decision. It was, do we close up shop or is this something I believe in? What is the point in which I say, okay, I got to cut my losses. This is not really what's going to happen. But on the other hand, I had projects. It's just, they weren't in as active of a state that month as they could have been, again, due to kind of the cyclical nature of our industry on the residential side anyway. And so that was interesting. And so from that experience, I learned that you really have to put your people, as in your team, first, right? You have to show up on the days that you're like, I really don't want to be here, or the days where you're just like, I'm really struggling with this. I'm really questioning certain things. You just have to show up and you have to say, okay, how are we going to do this? How are we going to make this happen?
Because they're sensing the struggle as well, and they're looking to you for cues.
Correct. You are the leader, whether you want to be or not. You're the leader.
Name's on the door.
Right? There you go. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, no, I love the couple of things in there that it is, and I don't think we've ever talked about this on the show. Maybe, I don't know, you tell me. I don't feel like we've ever had anybody who the conversation came around to, there was a moment when I could not meet payroll, and there was a moment when I had to go into my savings. And I would venture that probably 8 out of 10 of us have had to do that in our business life. It's not like, hey, you're the only one, Kat. What was wrong with you?
Right.
I mean, we had that in Window Works in the beginning. When we launched the company, my husband didn't take a salary for the first year and a half because we launched with employees as opposed to starting out as solo. Okay.
Right.
So he just said, you know what, I've got he owned 2 health clubs and he was a senior probation officer. And he said, I can do this nights and weekends. You guys are doing it full time during the day and the nights and the weekends.
Right.
and I will step back from taking a salary until we start to turn profit. And then we did hit our very first recession. And that was obnoxious. That was one of the biggest, hardest lessons that I remember of my entire business life. And we learned a heck of a lot from it. And each recession we did better. And I think we've been through 4 or 5 since then. And the last one we just sailed through practically without a blip, because, you don't put your head in the sand. The first one I remember, we put our head in the sand a little bit and thought, oh, it's not going to be that bad. It'll be fine. You know what I mean? But a whole nother discussion. But I think that you also saying to yourself, okay, I can put some money into this account from my personal savings, our family's personal savings. But you didn't just do it. It doesn't sound like to me. You alluded to that there was a thought process there, that you evaluated the clients that were in the pipeline, and maybe they weren't in a lot of billable hours in that exact 5 or 6 week period, but you had the spreadsheet to see, this was just a temporary thing, and it was worth the risk to your family to do the loan for the month. And how quickly did you pay your family back?
So I slowly paid us back over the course of the following year.
Okay.
I mean, I would say at this point, we've been paid back. But the other thing that we did at that time as a team, so at that point, I was like listening to your podcast at the gym. Not to be a total fangirl, but I'm such a fangirl. I would like go and work out, and I would like listen to your podcast, and I come back and be like, oh, okay, I think we're gonna try this, And I
do the same with other people's podcasts. I come into it, I'm like, okay, wait till you hear what I heard on a podcast.
Right. I mean, my eye rolling at that time. I was like, well, and that's what happens when you don't have a ton of billable work. You've got people that are staring at you like, what do you want me to work on? I'm like, I don't know. So what we discussed at that time was, okay, well, how do we do marketing? How do we grow? How do we show that we're here? And we had taken some professional photos, and so we had started to kind of showcase those, and then we were like, well, we need to do a photo shoot for this one project, and so we got that on the books, and then we were listening to something about blogging and how you can increase your SEO with blogging. And so we revamped the website, and then we started blogging. And I mean, those first blog posts were rough. However, sure enough, like we would do it. We would take some little iPhone pictures, and we would like Insta filter them, and then we'd pen them. And then so sure enough, like we started to get some some traction there. And then it helps because, again, I think I had mentioned earlier, I have a Jamie whose brain is opposite of mine, and he would be in there like going, like trying to figure out how to like blast these things and increase our like presence on the website when you Google us. And I'm going, great, I have no idea how you're doing this, but great, keep going, this is awesome, And so it's just been, it was amazing because I think the team recognized that I was not going to give up, and that I wanted ownership. Like, we are all stakeholders, right? Like, we are all valuable members of this team, and we all have great ideas. And I'm willing at this point, or definitely at that point, I was willing to try anything, just to get our name out there. So it was painful.
Yeah, it's hard. But what I love is that you consistently just would hear somebody on the podcast say that this worked for them, and you would do it instead of saying, oh, that won't work for us, or, that's crazy. And even the whole putting some blog posts out in order to get the SEO exposure. That's a totally valid thing to do. And do you know how many people go, well, I don't know. I mean, by the time I do it, and will it really work? And who's going to write it? And you're like, they were pretty rough looking, but they were out there and they started working. So I love your gumption.
Some of those were really bad. I mean, like the ones I wrote were really bad. I'm not going to throw anybody else under the bus, but, I'm like, I don't know how to talk about this. I just make it look pretty, right? Which is the problem. So, I don't know. It was. But
the googly guy doesn't care if they just wants the words. It just wants to see the word for interior design and Chapel Hill, and
he would be like, Kat, you need 50 more words, and I'm like, I don't have 50.
I've used all my words for this week.
Right, exactly.
No, I think that's awesome. I think that's great. Now, the thing is, let's fast forward a little bit, because another couple of things that you said to me in your email that really, really, really got my attention is that you referenced how my husband has our cost to be open number at WindowWorks, that we all that we know what it is. You tell us about that, how that made an impression on you and what you have done and what you figured out in your firm.
I totally am not a science math background person. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Neither are the rest of us. Don't worry.
So, for whatever reason, the financial component of it just took a lot longer in my brain to like sink in. Like, I knew I needed to make more money than I was spending. Like, I got that part, right?
You got that.
But when it came down to the like, when you start getting a little more granular with payroll and taxes and all these other sorts of things, it took me a little while to finally hit my head against the wall on that one and have it sink in. And so a couple of things happened on the financial component. One is I had an accountant the very first time. And, when I had him when I had first started, neither of us thought that I was going to actually hire people and this was going to go anywhere in the first year. So, in the first year wraps up and we've made a small little profit, which we immediately turn around and had to like push back out that following January.
Right.
Because that's how it goes. But we ended up with a small little profit. I had managed to pay myself some that first year, and we were just sitting there going, he's saying, well, I think you've made this amount of money. And I was going, that seems a little high. And then, I realized that, he hadn't actually been keeping up with my books the first year. And so we get to the end of it and I'm like, oh crap. So then I start asking around, is there a local person, who helps with like small businesses? So I switched to a new firm, and then they were great. They cleaned up a bunch of stuff, but then as we kept growing, it felt like they were having a harder and harder time keeping up. So I've switched accounting firms again this month, and these people are on point. And so between like trying to understand that, and then I think I listened to, I got Profit First, and I was like listening to that podcast.
Michelle Williams from Scarlet Thread. Oh my God, how smart is she?
Man, I need to buy her a drink. She's awesome.
Yes.
She was talking about buckets.
Yeah.
And however, she made it really visual.
Right.
And I'm so visual. And so she started talking about buckets, and you need to make sure that, you're just because you're paying your employee X amount doesn't mean that that's actually how much you're paying out. You're paying out a lot more. Right. And then you also have taxes, and you need to make sure you're taking account of taxes. And then what's your leftover is that's really truly what you may or may not get to take home. Right. And you need to be making sure you get paid before you buy anything, which luckily I had that one down. But it was just
probably helped that your husband was in law school. It wasn't like,
right. Yeah. I was like, we can't afford to swing this. So it was literally like you were taking this little block of, it was literally truly trying to sit there and say, how do I make this work? And how do I figure out what is it that we need to make in order to keep our doors open? So then I started to crunch some numbers. And again, this is where Jamie came back in, where I was like, hey, you're really good with spreadsheets. Can you help me figure this out? And we started to figure out, okay, so what's the number that we have to make each month in order to keep our doors open? And that's the number that we all know in the office that we have to make to pay ourselves, to pay our expenses. Anything above that's gravy. And, I don't put whatever's over and beyond that into my pocket. It's just sits in the company account.
Right.
So the goal is to make sure that I have enough that I'm never in a position again where I have to take money from the personal side and put it back into the company. And so if we have a month where for whatever reason we haven't hit that number, there's a cushion, you know? And then also as we grow, there's like, okay, how are we going to pay raises? How are we going to make that new number? Like, what is the new number? Exactly. Okay. we bought a van a couple of weeks ago. So we all sat down and looked at it and said, okay, well, we're going to buy this van. How are we going to pay that off? Right. I really try to be transparent. We do the Chad James Monday morning meeting thing where we sit down and we talk through the week and we look at the next couple weeks and the few months out of that and what do we need to do and who's working on what. And then if there's like some issues in the world of money and cash flow, then we are also talking about that. It's not common, but you know, I want to make sure that they understand where I'm coming from, and you know, and then we cheer. And if we have a really great month, then we all go out to lunch. So,
nice.
You know,
very nice, very nice. So, and they all understand that their success is tied to the success of the firm, because the better the firm does, the better they do. Like you said, there's ability to build in raises on their work anniversaries and things like that, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And yeah, absolutely. And I try to recognize that my people are people. So do you know Carolyn Hipple?
No.
Okay. All right. So she wrote this book. It's called A Pathway to Profit. I met her at Amy Fleury's book launch in High Point when I was like 8.5 months pregnant. And she is a rock star. She is currently the president of Norwalk Furniture. But what I really love about it is we were having a conversation over like lemonade and cookies, standing in line for the ladies' room and talking. And we just kind of jammed on the whole, how do you run your team? How do you encourage your people? You know, and I've got a team of 3 and she's got, you know, an entire company, a large one. But what was so great about it is it's really, truly, you put your employees first. Like, they're people. How do you recognize that they are people? And then the book is one that she co-authored, and I was reading it the other day on my way to Pittsburgh for an installation. And it was, you know, it's really, truly, it has all these great little one-liners in it about encouraging your people and how that's like, you know, I read somewhere about how people don't quit jobs, they quit bosses. You know?
Yep.
And so for me, that is I think truly how I think of it. You know, I love my clients, I love my projects, I love my job, but it wouldn't run if my people weren't here to help me, you know,
right,
at all. And so I want to make sure that I'm constantly thinking of them too. You know,
that's awesome. It's awesome. I mean, and it is so critical because everybody needs to. What it is everybody wants to feel important as part of the team, and part of that is understanding the company mission and the core values of that team. And so you have a company mission and you're out and, you know, to do your interior design, and your core values are represented in the fact that you have time at nights and weekends to spend with family and rejuvenate, and you share the vision with them, the goals with them, what it is every month that you have to do, and you let them know that together that you reach those goals, and then together you get the benefits of those goals. It's very smart. You're a very smart lady there, Kat.
Oh, thank you.
I feel like I have to get a bell when that comes through my mind now. Like,
there you go.
You're a smart lady. Ding ding, you get a bell.
You get a award.
That's so funny. I'm going to have to get a sound effect for that, don't you think?
I think so. Yeah, I do.
Definitely have to come up with one. So the thing is, now give me a little bit of the nitty gritty, because I love that you took to heart Michelle Williams and of the Scarlet Thread, and that, you know, the profit first conversation, and understanding how to separate your money in the different bank accounts and so forth, so that you have it when you need it for the quarterly taxes and the yearly taxes and for all the other things that are going on, and for the months of the year that are slower. We've talked about that on the show all the time, how Window works. We've kept track of our monthly sales
Right.
every single month since 1982, and we can
Right.
see the cycles. And now my husband, now we're recording this in August, he will now start to prepay for the winter months.
Yep.
If we have vans and things like that, or he will just start to send double payments on things, because if we don't have a break even month in January or February, he doesn't want to be short on things like payroll. And of course, now with 10 people, the payroll's a big nut, right?
Right.
So
yeah. And it should be like, if you're running a successful firm, you should be paying your people well, right?
Absolutely.
And so you have to kind of plan for that and think through it and understand it. I think one of the things that I have done is acknowledge that if I want my clients to pay for my time and my ability as an expert, I need to be willing to pay for the time and expert level of others who are in fields that I do not get. So I have a lawyer. I love him. It's not my husband. And and he's great, and he's helped me revise contracts. And when I am negotiating with a big client that I think is going to be a game changer for us, I run it by him. Or if we're talking, just various things, I reach out to him and I say, hey, this is the situation. Can I get a little bit of your time this week to talk through it? Can you help me out? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. Same for accounting. I was saying, I know now kind of what the cycle is. Can we beat that? Yeah, I think we can. Some of the ways that I'm trying to accomplish that, so it's not so cyclical because residential, I think, is just going to be cyclical no matter how much I try.
Mm-hmm.
However, now we've been also working on some commercial projects, so that shouldn't be as big of an issue. We've also started working with one of the top real estate agents in Chapel Hill, and we do her staging for her. So that's something else that's just so I'm trying to diversify, but I'm trying to diversify in ways that feel authentic and true to who we are. So I'm not, is this something, and we talk about every project before we take it on as a team. It's does the person seem like somebody that we want to work with, right? It's beyond just, do they have the money? Is the project interesting? But it's more of is there enough rapport that we feel like our voice is heard? And that we can have a dialogue. And I've fired clients. I probably shouldn't say that, but I have. Okay. Because you get into it and it's this isn't working. There is no way that I'm going to make you happy. And you're going to continue to spend more and more time and money on me and my company. And I just don't think I'm the right fit for you. I thought we were at the beginning, but as this has proceeded, it's just not. And
is that something that you've actually said in that way? Is that what you're, and how was it received?
Yeah, they're usually upset.
Then you do then you do it's not you, it's me.
No. They're usually upset. No. I'm happy to send you some names. I think this is how you should proceed with your project. But as in our, this is your, my written breakup email to you following up from the phone call we just had. That's what I have in my contract.
Okay, so time out. Let's pick this apart. Okay, so you have it in your contract. See, this is the thing. The things have to be part of the agreement to the beginning, right? So what you're saying is part of your contract has an explanation about if we get to the point where probably you say one or both of us doesn't feel that the project is productive or whatever the language is you use, that you have the right to terminate the project. That's what you say. Okay.
Yep.
You see, and that's the difference, having it in there in the front, right? Because that's okay. And then when you have that conversation, I hear you. You just said, I have to say that I thought we were a good fit. We're not a good fit. I'm not able to please you. This is going to cost you more and more money because whatever is happening, we're spinning our wheels. But take us to the response. The response is it of anger? Is it just tell us what kinds of conversations have progressed from that?
I think, I've had a couple clients who, they're upset. But usually if we're getting to the point where we're having to untangle ourselves from a project, the client's already has been indicating that they're upset about something.
Right.
And contrary to HGTV's popularity, these projects do not happen in a 30-minute design session with 2 commercial breaks. It's a long process. It can, a couple months, on to like a year plus if we're doing the full enchilada of coming in, measuring, full renovation, all the way down to like, styling your shelves and hanging your curtains and fluffing your pillows. We're talking like major relationships here. And a lot of times it's a communication challenge. And I will do my best to make a client happy. And you can ask some, like my clients, we have done some really over the top things to, pull something off for them, or to meet a deadline, or to get that fabric that, just got discontinued, but we managed to track it down over here, However, there needs to be a level of respect, because I am a business. Yes, I'm a person, but I'm also a business. And you have hired a business. You have not hired me, your bestie. And I maintain that boundary. And I am really sensitive to the second that a client thinks that they can get something out of me by, starting to badger or what have you, or acting bad, or breaking bad is how my husband calls it. And so if we start to break bad, I will stop and I'll address it. And I will say, okay, what's going on here? What's really the problem? I want to have that dialogue initially. But if we're continuing to get the same kind of behavior, no matter what we're doing, and everybody on the team is frustrated and we just can't do what they're asking, that's when I'm like, hey, so I want us to pause. We need to stop. I just don't think we're able to meet your expectations here. I really apologize. I'm happy to hand over what we've got. I'm happy to, help your next person on board if you need that, and just kind of have a conversation about where we were and where you're headed. But this isn't working, and you need to find somebody else, And so, yeah, I get some. Usually people are hurt. But again, it's a business. And then the thing is like the second you get that one bad client out, 2 more great ones come along.
Right.
I'm every time.
Right.
And so then you're like, okay, well, I'm not even worried about that,
Right.
So,
well, and the thing is, as long as you handle it professionally, but
absolutely.
What you are always consistently expressing is it's not just about you, it's about your team too. So if your whole team is paying the price for a particular client that, may or may not be a pain in the patootie, it might just be a conflict of personality, which is legit, right?
It is.
So sometimes they are just a son of a gun, and other times it is just a conflict. But either way, the result is the same, where you're looking around at your team and everybody's like, I don't want to be on this project. And that's no good, right?
Especially like, I value people tremendously, and, it's a big deal in this office that if we are talking to a vendor, or we're talking to another interior designer, or anybody really, that we have to be nice, we have to be respectful, we need to ask them how they're doing, treat them like a person, like they matter, right? And if we are extending that, but then for whatever reason the person cannot do that in return, and it starts to get to the point where there's resentment building up, that I have to talk to this person, nobody wants to talk to them, nobody wants to address it, we don't know when it's going to pop off. That's when I'm like, okay, we need to figure something else out.
We have to have the hard conversation.
We do, because the mental load is so much that then everybody's thinking about it, and we're not actually getting anything done.
Right. It weighs everything down. It does. And the thing is, I think it's interesting to learn that you have had that experience already in only 2.5 years in business, and more challenging for you to handle that as a young business person. However, you sound like you're older beyond your years as far as interpersonal skills and so forth. Right. It has nothing to do with how young your business is. You have a skill set there. But the thing is that I have to say that many of us will not do that in the beginning years for fear of not being able to, pay the bills or make the rent or blah, blah, blah. And to your point, the work suffers, but you also are clogging up space that is supposed to be filled by a project that you're supposed to have. And you have to trust in that. You really do just have to trust that if you really know it's not a good situation for your entire company, you have to extricate yourself and your company from it. It's like, it's like put your life mask on before you put your kids on. It's like you have to put your business life mask on before you worry about the client's, kitchen getting finished, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And yes, I'm not saying we don't make mistakes. We
Of course.
And I will own it is the other thing is I will say, I totally told you that this was going to work and I am so wrong and I am so sorry. And here's how I want to fix it. Right.
That's the best way to do it.
And if I get client feels from that, well, I deserve it. Right. But, I think the thing is, there are so many things about running a business that are just straight scary. And I just have, a joke that I'm like the duck on the water and like underneath the water, it's like the legs are going 1,000,000 miles an hour, right?
Exactly.
And it looks calm, but it's
so crazy.
It is. It's really crazy. But the thing is like, it's fun. Like I enjoy it. It's a new challenge. Every day's totally different. And things are scary, but I've also found that like you can't get somewhere if you don't try.
Right.
I can't take that step. If I don't take that step out of fear, then I'm not taking the step. Right. And so, and the joke is like, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? And at this point, it's like, okay, so we lost a client. Luckily, thankfully, we have more that, and different types of projects. So it's, we're okay,
Right. Well, it's every month and every year building on both the successes and the failures that you experience. The failures teach you huge lessons, and the successes keep you going. I mean, it's the simple, and look, I say to you guys all the time, I'm almost 40 years doing this, and I just had a situation recently where I had a mistake on a big, double digits, thousands job in Manhattan. And I just looked at the designer and I looked at the client and I said, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's on me.
I don't know what to tell you, but I'll never make this mistake again because now I know. And none of us are laughing in that moment. But the point about it is that the mistake is almost always magnified if you pretend it's not there. Then it's this huge elephant in the room. And so that's why I love that you said that when I make a mistake, I own it. I say I apologize for it and I offer a solution because that's what you can do. And I actually had the situation where at one point in the conversation, the client started to use language like, well, I thought we were using you because you were a professional.
Oh.
Yeah, see, you don't want to say that to me. Like, you just don't.
Bless your heart.
Yeah, and I thought to myself, oh, okay, so the criteria for being a professional is perfection? Like, the criteria for being a professional, I'm sorry, is owning my mistake and resolving it and not holding you financially accountable for that. Fortunately, I didn't have to express that. Fortunately, it was one of those comments that went along the wayside, and I decided she'll need to say that to me 3 times before I come at her. And she only said it once in an email and never again. And so I thought, okay, but that's what I've learned. What I've learned is that you don't have to address everything. You don't have to tell everybody what's right and wrong. Right? And so I thought, okay, you put it in your email. Let's see if you say it to my face. And you have to say it to me twice to my face because the first time I'm going to let it go. Second time, we're going to have a little conversation about it.
Yep.
So, but
that first time I'm always like, I give them the benefit of the doubt. You're probably having a really bad day.
Right.
And this was just the icing on the cake.
Right. And it deflects from the actual solution that's happening if you get involved in the language of things that are meant to inflame. I always try and find out what they do for a living. And so it's sort of like your husband is a lawyer. Does that mean like if he has a mistake in any way connected to his job, he's actually not a lawyer, a professional lawyer?
Correct.
But you know what I mean? It's like, come on, don't do that.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. I joke that a lot of times, for me anyway, it's not about what I want at all.
Right.
You know, it's about what does the client want?
Right.
How do I figure that out? You know, okay, the client's upset. Great. Okay. What do we need to do to resolve this? Right. Is this something that I actually have agency over? If it's not something I have agency over, is there something that I can help the client like figure out how to solve? Is that what they're asking? If it's not something I can help them figure out how to solve, who can help them? Right. You know, or do I just need to let it go? Right. I just need to let it go. I'm just like, okay, blowing smoke sounds good.
Right. We have a saying in my family. One of my kids, he says when everybody's all, he goes, you'll figure it out. Everybody's screaming in the kitchen, I'm like, you'll figure it out. Oh gosh. Well, I have to tell you, I'm really, really, really impressed, Kat. I have to say, and we talked about this, and I just have to share this. I really want to share it, and I will edit it out if you want. But I want to put the icing on the cake on this conversation because I have conversations with interior designers that are, as you are, in their first 2-3 years in business, and everything is exactly the same. They have these terrific lessons. They have these challenges that they've gone through. They have these successes that they've gone through. They've been able to teach and share something with us that helps us do something better. But they may still only be doing $50,000, $80,000, $100,000 a year in business, which is fine. But I just have to say that I want everybody to understand that in under 2.5 years, your firm is approaching $500,000 in gross revenues per year. And I just think that is the icing on the conversation. And that's the huge congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
It really is. And that to me just adds a whole nother level of whoa to the whole thing that you're doing. So
it's bananas.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Bananas.
I know what that is. That's a lot of balls in the air to be running that kind of numbers through a business. And so for you to be doing it as well as you're doing it. And I understand that you're saying you're not saying you don't make mistakes. You're not saying you're not going crazy. You're not saying that, hey, it's a picnic. But the thing is you are doing it, and you can hear why, because you're very intentional and you think about things, and you're investing in your team as people and as professionals. And I think that it's really, I'm loving your whole thing there, Kat. I really am.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I thank you so much for coming on the show with me today. I'm glad you wrote to me and told me about your business. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for celebrating your podcast, because that was the impetus.
Yes, right for the birthday party, right?
Right there, fangirl. I was like, oh my gosh, congratulations.
Well, we'll be getting ready to do the next birthday party celebration in February. Another party will be coming up somewhere in New York or New Jersey, like it always is. So keep it on your radar, guys. You're all always invited. It's going to be pretty darn exciting. So if you can come, put it on your calendar. All righty. What is the big aha of this episode? I'm going to tell you what it is. The big aha of this episode is that if you make a commitment to you and to your business, and you decide, like I'm a broken record every single week telling you to decide to do something, decide to be excellent, then you can be. Kat French is actual living proof of it. Her business is not 3 years old yet, and she's heading for $500,000 in gross revenue. That is major. That is significant. Okay? That is a woman who hears a lesson on the show and does it. Okay? Chad James says to her that it's very important to have Monday meetings, and she does it. We did it at WindowWorks too. It changed our business. I mean, we're how many gabillion centuries in business, and I'm still learning. So the simple fact of the matter is that I really think that so often that business owners that are struggling, they're struggling because they hear advice but don't take it. They maybe sometimes convince themselves that they're taking it, but it didn't work for them, or it's too hard, or it's this. I'm going to tell you what. We've had so many people on this show in almost 3 years share advice, strategies, insights, information that I know that if you even did 2 of them, 3 of them, you would make a difference in your business. So I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. I do not want you to feel intimidated. I want you to feel empowered. I want you to feel excited. I want you to feel inspired. Okay? Kat French is a baby designer and she is killing it. You can do it too. Whether you're a baby designer or you're a seasoned designer. If you're a seasoned designer and you've got 10 or 15 years and you are not making $80, $90, $100, $200,000 a year for yourself, your personal business, then start to take action. Listen to the steps that are happening, the things that these other designers are sharing. You can do it. I know you can, but you have to decide to do it, okay? In the beginning of my book, I talk about this one story, and I ask you, are you looking for the magic pill? And the truth of the matter is there's no magic pill. It's you. You have to do it. All right. So, and if you are struggling in your business, I don't often talk about it. I think this is probably the second time in 2 weeks now. I've said it. My book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, is literally an A to Z roadmap. It's the basics of getting a business up and off the ground. So if you're struggling, you have to do 2 things. You have to have the roadmap, but then you have to take action on it. Okay. So between the podcast and the book, there's a lot of information. Avail yourself of it. But more importantly, do something about it, okay? All right, so I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it a lot when I hear from listeners just like Kat, who actually are excited and happy. Does that mean everything's perfect? No. Does that mean everything every day is right? No. Does it mean that she never falls down? Does it mean that she never has a tough day? No. Does it mean she has it all figured out? No, I don't have it all figured out. I'm 3 decades ahead of her. The idea is you do your best every day, right? Just get up every day and do your best. You can do it. Decide today to do something to be excellent, okay? All right, now, before I go, I want to tell you, we talked about the birthday party, and I'm about 99% sure that this year it's going to be at the Kravitz showroom in New York City. I will have that finalized in December, but put it on your radar screen, okay? We typically have it the first week of February. It usually coincides with the New York Gift Show week. So if you plan to come in from out of town to be at the New York Gift Show, or if you're local, obviously, definitely come to the birthday party. But listen for announcements, and what I would say is the best way to always know what's going on in the podcast and the places and the events that I'll be speaking at are to be on my email list. And if you want to be on my email list, just text the number 444-999, and then in the field write, text in, you know what I mean. Design Biz, DESIGNBIZ. Okay. No caps, no spaces. 444-999. Text Design Biz. All right. And then you will be on the email list and you will know exactly up to date all of the information on what's going on connected to the podcast. Okay. All righty. Thank you tons for joining me today. I really, really, really value that you show up, and I love it when you are talking with me on Instagram and Facebook and letting me know what you've learned from the different guests and the things that they've shared and how it is making changes in your business. And that's what it's all about, and I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day. Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at luannigara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.